Hi, my name is Rizky from acreativealt, and in this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step process on setting up an affordable video content studio for LinkedIn so that you can convert something like this to this. Whatever brands that I'm going to mention on this particular video can actually be changed to something else. So there are 4 things that you need in order for you to create content at home: camera, tripod, light, and audio. Many of us are starting to get used to working from home. This is probably the best time for us to keep doing content at home. I've been trying to produce my own video content online for quite some time now, and when we starting to work from home, I was thinking on how can I catch up with that. In my office, I actually have a dedicated spot whereby I can just sit down and record my video. Basically, I have a stationary setup, so the light, the camera, everything there is pretty much a fix, and I can always sit down and I can start my recording process. One of the problems with many of us here in Singapore, and of course in many other big cities, are the fact that we don't have space. So I can't afford to actually bring that big light that I have in my studio, or even a big camera and the big video tripod that I use in the studio, and so on and so forth. So I am trying to simplify the setup a little bit, and I don't believe the same setup can actually be used for many of us who are actually starting to produce content for LinkedIn on YouTube. This is pretty much a simplified version of what we normally use on corporate video productions, and even my usual YouTube video productions that I do in the office. Of course, when you're choosing camera, it's all about the budget. I normally use my favorite Sony cameras, but for this particular video, I purposely use an older camera. This camera used to be our main video production camera for corporate videos. But what I would like to recommend when you're just starting to do video content production setup at home is to have a camera that has a flip screen so that you can actually see yourself. Normally in the studio, or even doing our professional video productions, we have a separate monitor that we use to monitor the recordings, or sometimes I actually use my phone, connect the camera to my phone. This work from home kind of setup, I want to simplify it as much as possible. So I decided to bring back this old camera, which is the Panasonic GH4. Normally like to have a really wide lens in order for me to create YouTube content, but in this case I decided to use this tiny lens that is pretty much the focal length of a kit lens. I'm using a 28mm equivalent lens here, whereby if you buy a basic mirrorless camera or DSLRs with the kit lens, you probably get this kind of focal length. So you can see it's actually wide enough, but it's not that wide as compared to my the ultra wide angle lens that I normally use for my YouTube videos. So this is the minimum focal length that you probably should get in order for you to create YouTube content or any types of video content. Reason being because I think it's ideal to be able to frame us like this, so it's not too tight and you can still see a little bit of the backgrounds, which I think it kind of adds the characteristics of the video itself. If you look at like many famous YouTubers, say Peter McKinnon or Potato Jet, one of my famous YouTuber friends, Jeremy C, you can see they always use the same backgrounds, and you tend to be able to remember that background. So the background becomes some sort of a rector. When you do this from home, I think you can just simply buy a travel tripod. What I would like to suggest is actually the positions of the camera. I always believe that the ideal positions of the camera is actually somewhere slightly above your eye level. By doing so, it actually gives the illusions of you actually talking to someone. So it gives some sort of interactions between you and whoever that is watching your video. And at the same time, it creates, because it's slightly higher, it creates kind of a flattering look to your face, as opposed to you put the camera below, just like a typical webcam on a laptop, whereby it actually creates, of course, your double chin kind of look. So put the camera slightly above your eye level. The next thing that I'm going to highlight is, of course, the light. Having a good light is much more important than having a good camera. The first rule to note whenever you are actually setting up the light for a video, the bigger the light source is, the softer the light is. Typically for these types of video, we always want a soft shadow on our face because it's kind of minimize our imperfections. When the light is really harsh, you will tend to be able to see more imperfections, like you can see all the wrinkles, all the pimples on your face. But of course, the bigger the light is, of course, the more space you need. And chances are, the bigger the light is, the more expensive the light is. For our professional film productions, we always bring this giant light dome, but of course this is not something that I can set up at home due to the space. I'm basically shooting this video on my bedroom in front of my work from home station. In my office, I actually have this big LED lights. The idea of this is basically to buy a light that is bigger than your face. Likewise, it is still too big for my work from home station. So the next best thing is actually the ring light, which is commonly used by many beauty YouTubers out there. Due to the shape, it actually enables to minimize the numbers of LED lights being used, but at the same time increase the physical size, so it creates a softer shadow. I do believe this is not the best light to be used because the fact that it actually creates a pretty distracting kind of reflection, especially if you're wearing glasses like me. It will actually be pretty obvious and it's kind of distracting. But I do believe this is actually the most value for money light that you can purchase. If you want to buy something affordable that is still soft enough and it still makes your video much better compared to just simply put a camera and record, this is the light that probably you can consider. You can soften the reflections by simply putting a super cheap plastic bag. Of course, you can still see it, but at least it's minimized it a little bit. You put the lights above your head and tilt it downwards, and the reason why is that we always used to see light coming from the top. Just like our sun, just like our ceiling light, it always comes from the top. So whenever the light doesn't come from the top, it actually creates an unnatural look on the face. So put the lights above your head and tilt it downwards. Regarding the light, it's always nice to have another light source at the back just to give a little bit of a detail. And in my case, I actually have this light. I actually put a small light just behind me, so it actually creates a little bit of highlight on my outline here. So just give a bit of a separation from the back, and at the same time gives a bit of a depth whereby you can actually see the distance between me and the background. And ideally, this is something that I can't actually do at home. I have a really limited space in my bedroom, but it's always ideal to have a bit of distance between you as a subject and your background so that you will have a nice blurred background, or what we call bokeh here. And it's always good to put a nice detail at the background. Of course, the detail should be something relevant to you to give a bit of a point interest on the background. Of course, if you want to showcase something, let's say you are wine collectors and your job is actually to sell wine, you can display a different range of wines in your background, or probably like what I have in my studio, whereby I always want to give a memento to my own passion, whereby it's music. So basically, for lights, get the biggest light that you can get, put it above your head and tilt it down. Have a separate light at the background with some interesting detail on the background. Lastly, of course, the microphone. Any cameras nowadays can actually record a video and audio at the same time, but one thing about audio is that the closer the microphone to the source, the better the audio quality is. Typically what we've seen on vloggers or someone that are recording themselves as a talking head, they'll just simply put a camera and put a shotgun microphone on top of the camera like this. Of course, something like this works, whereby you can actually record the audio, but this is something that is not very ideal. The distance between the source and the microphone is pretty far. Therefore, the microphone will actually capture a lot of ambient noise. Something that I've been learning throughout my experience is the fact that aircon is actually very noisy when you are talking about video recordings. Try to bring the microphone closer to you. In our professional video productions, always set up a wireless microphone, and sometimes it's a lapel mic whereby just record it wirelessly. But of course, to set up something like this takes a little bit of time. And one thing about creating an online content is all about being consistent. The more complicated your setup is, chances are you probably just do it one time and you won't do it again. I always try to minimize the setup time so that I can just quickly sit down and start creating content. In my video productions, I always bring this, whereby this serves as a backup audio, so you can actually put this on your table or somewhere closer to you. Even like put it just below your chest like this, whereby you don't see it on the frame, but it's still close enough to your mouth. But if you only have one microphone, and typically people will just buy a shotgun microphone like this, which is actually very cost-effective audio solutions for your camera, you can get something like this, which is called a magic arm. It's basically a clamp. You can clamp it on your table, on your shelf, or whatsoever. In this case, I actually clamp it on the light stand and mount the shotgun mic on top. With this, I can bring the microphone closer to me and get a better quality audio. So just one last tip in terms of recording video content on your own at home is actually to just record the entire content one shot and cut it later on. And this is what I meant when we shoot corporate videos for client. We typically cut every message. I have an assistant whereby he just simply take note on the parts that we are going to use for the final videos, or sometimes I do that myself. I take note on each text that I'll be using for the particular questions. But when you are recording your own video, I do believe the fastest method is that I will just record it one shot. I will signify the first and second take by clapping. So let's say this is my first take, I'll just clap one time. If this is my second take, I'll just clap twice. So let's say I use my third takes, I'll just need to find on the audio signal that has 3 claps, and I'll just simply cut that particular portions and use it for the final video. So that's all for today. I hope this video is useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time.